Hello everyone, I'm Max. As Steve said, thank you very much for the great intro. I'm part of Joostrap and we're going to be telling you about Bootstrap, how to do it correctly and what you're doing wrong. With me on this is Phil, who is my business partner at Joostrap, and we make templates that use the Bootstrap development framework, and so we're in the code every day helping people through our support forum and also developing new templates, new modules, new extensions all of the time. We've also got our own other businesses. Mine's molehill.com.au in Australia, and Phil's in the UK is fastnetwebdesign.co.uk, and the business that we're in together is Joostrap.com. Now, a little bit about Phil. Phil has been in the Joomla world for a long time and he speaks at conferences. This was at the JAB conference earlier in the year. He likes making finger puppets whenever he's speaking. Now, just a word of warning, this template or this presentation slide deck that I got, Phil is based on the one that Phil used at the JAB conference. And he's handed it over to me, so I've been able to edit it and make funny bits here and there with him. So here we go. This is Phil with hair. And with me, because I've been able to make up the slide deck, I'll be able to have lovely slides about myself. And I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. I've lived all over the world. We're not in Austria. We're right at the bottom of the world. This is what I look like. And this is myself speaking at the Joomla conference in 2013 in Melbourne. And there's Cindy Montano, Brian Tiemann, Peter Van Westen, and Tang Bui from Vietnam there. And in Melbourne, not only was Joomla pretty much born and birthed out of Melbourne, we've also got great international outreach to the rest of the Joomla world, as you can see at our Melbourne conference here. There's a Sydney conference coming up in a few months' time that Joostrap's the gold sponsor of. So if you feel like a trip to Australia, check out the Joomla Day Sydney website online, just search for it and you'll find us there as well. Now, who is Joostrap and myself and Phil? Phil's been dedicated to Joomla for a long time. He's been around since the Mambo days when Joomla got forked from Mambo back in 2003. Phil's has been a board member of Open Source Matters and got into Bootstrap and created the Joostrap business back in 2012. Around about that time in mid 2013, I got to join Phil in Joostrap as well. And I've been building websites since 1993. I'm currently part of the Joomla marketing certification and JUG teams. And shock horror, I do stuff outside of Joomla as well. A lot of stuff in e-commerce using Magento and a little bit in WordPress too. If you've got any questions, please put them over on the side there. Phil's online as well, so he'll be able to take questions with me as we go through. Now, what specifically are we going to cover in the session? We're going to be going over what Bootstrap is and the power of it and how we can use it. We're going to be covering also the things that you shouldn't be doing and how to not make any of those mistakes. We'll go over a number of websites that don't look like Bootstrap and can show you what can be done with Bootstrap and our Joostrap templates. We'll show you how to optimize and remove any bloat from Bootstrap so that it'll run nice and fast. And then at the end, we'll have some time to run over some questions and answer all of those. So feel free to put them down, and Phil's definitely going to come in and help us out with that as well. So without further ado, let's get into it and go through what Bootstrap is. Bootstrap is the most popular front-end framework for developing responsive mobile-first projects. From Bootstrap 3.2 onwards, it's been mobile-first, which means the default display is how it will look on a mobile phone, and it allows us to add extra elements as it goes to a bigger screen. So on a mobile, for example, you can have the minimum, so it'll load nice and fast, and then as you get to a bigger screen, being mobile first, it then loads and gets more elements in there as it gets larger. Bootstrap itself is the front-end framework that is used on Joomla by default. So if you are using Joomla 3, the current versions all have Bootstrap loaded on them already. As far as we're concerned, we've got one CSS file and two JavaScript files that we use from Bootstrap, which gives us all of our responsive classes and utilities and gives us our fancy JavaScript things like the drop-down menus and pop-ups and that type of thing that helps us. And there's a few other bits and pieces as well, but that is the main bits that we use in our templates to give us our responsive mobile-first display. And the great thing about Bootstrap is it was originally by Twitter. They open sourced it a few years ago, and now there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of developers and community members that are developing it all the time and enhancing it, and any bugs and so forth that do occur get fixed very quickly. And because there's such a lot of resources with it, it means that it becomes very, very stable over time. With us using it as the front-end framework for our display in Joomla, it means that all of the enhancement of those hundreds and thousands of other developers just working on that front-end framework, we get the benefit of all of that when we're using Bootstrap in Joomla. Has a lot of cool functionality baked in, which means you don't have to start from scratch. You've got a heap of stuff there to start with right from the word go, which for website developers saves you a lot of time and money because you can get your websites developed and out there faster, move on to your next project and make money. And if you're a website owner, it allows you to get your website up and working more quickly, which allows you to then move on and start making money. Hang up. There we go. Okay, some of the popular front-end bits and pieces for doing it. It gives you a lot of the user interface elements and a lot of the other bits and pieces. So when you are on the mobile first project, it allows you to have that iteration of starting off with a fairly basic thing and moving forward and doing it very quickly and easily. One of the really important things about Bootstrap is that if you haven't used it before, is to get in and read the documentation. As we get Bootstrap website, there's things like the grid system, which gives you the layouts. Bootstrap's a 12 column grid system. So learn about the 12 columns, how they work with the responsive classes in the grids and so forth, and also the responsive utilities. And what the responsive utilities do, they turn elements on and off dependent on the screen size. So whether it's extra small, small, medium, or large, there's responsive utilities that say on this screen show this, on this side screen show that. And so it's all around that screen size there. And getting to learn those two things will get you a long way and make life a lot easier for you. There's a heap of stuff that's on the website and a heap of stuff that's on the in the documentation. So when you go in there, you don't have to use everything. You only have to use the bits and pieces that you wish to use. So you don't have to get too confused. And but go in, have a look at all the bits of the user interface and all of the elements that Bootstrap does provide, and have a bit of a play around, have a bit of fun, and work out what you'll get the most out of. And in the end, again, it helps you get the things developed quickly. It makes it present nicely right off the bat. And if you're a developer, it means you can get your sites out faster and make more money. Now, Phil especially, being around in the very early days of Bootstrap, would have got this all of the time where people are saying, oh, Bootstrap websites look the same, and I can tell what this looks like and tell what that looks like. And so you had these types of websites that were going out there, and you downloaded these Bootstrap templates. People would stick some text in there and stick a few images up, and a lot of them right at the start did look quite similar. So, and that was why people were sort of saying, oh, gee, we don't want to use it. It looks all the same. But Then you get people like Phil that sort of innovate from that and came up with a great way of integrating Bootstrap into Joomla, and you end up with websites that look like this. This is Phil's Fastnet website, and we're going to showcase a few of the websites from our members at Joostrap and some of the websites that Phil's done and myself have done, just so you can go through and see, that a Bootstrap website doesn't particularly look like those straight Bootstrap websites that first hit when Bootstrap first came out. This is a fairly recent one that Phil did for a recruitment company. And it's got all custom data interfaces and so forth. So all the power and so forth that you'd normally see in Joomla, you can see in the data and in the tables, you can see all the styling and everything. You can get that straight out of Bootstrap straight away without having to build all of the interface bits and pieces right from the start. All of your icons you can pull straight out of Bootstrap. All of that user interface element is provided. And of course, then you've got some custom stuff like the pretty hearts and stuff that Phil comes up with and the lovely trees and so forth. And because it's mobile first, when you've got things like Google Maps or like your contact forms and everything like that, it doesn't matter whether you're viewing it on a mobile device or a large screen, it'll always display nicely. This is one that we did from Molehill in Australia. This is for a local agricultural group of business to business, connecting farmers and distributors and restaurants and people who use the food directly together. Another one we did for an analytics firm up in Sydney. They've got some lovely, great big clients like Lynam and University, Westfield, those types of clients, all built on Bootstrap. This is a Joostrap store, or MyWoSoft now. It's open cart in Joomla, based on the Joostrap base templates. Photographer, based off the same templates. You can see here, same thing with the maps on mobile and large screens, always works well. Same with your contact forms, everything else on there. The Foo Fighters, it's Foo Fighters tribute band. This one's also built off the base Joostrap template. You can see this looks nothing like a Bootstrap website. Another e-commerce store for a bike shop. This one is by one of our members, Kelsey Brooks. He's up in Queensland and has an agency up there, and this is a great Joostrap website that he's built. This is Gavin Hookham in the UK, has Red 11 Creative, rolls out a heap of websites. His production's amazing. These are all Bootstrap sites. This is the Joomla 3.3 landing page development. It's bootstrapped as well, of course. I've got Joe the Joomla Man website he's done. And Alison Meeks, who's also over in Canada. We're hopping all over the world here, from Queensland to the UK and over to Canada. AM Graphics. You can see the top of Alison's head down the bottom there. And another site that she completed recently for an artist as well, all based off Bootstrap. Okay, so that's a bit of a range of the stuff that you can do with the Bootstrap in Joomla, and I think pretty much every Joomla template club and commercial club is using Bootstrap in all of their templates nowadays. And the thing is, when you do have a website, you do want to customize it so that it looks like your own. And so a lot of people would go off to the getbootstrap.com/customize, which allows you to customize exactly all the components that you want to download and use on your website. The only problem is, of course, is that the amount of components that are available to you can be pretty huge, which means that you end up with a fairly large Bootstrap graphics file. And you can see here on the screen and look down at that menu on the right-hand side at all of the options that you have to be able to do it. And this is a less compiler, so you can put all your mix-ins and bits and pieces here. And all the way down the bottom until it compiles and downloads and gives you your files. And the message from us is no, don't do that. Because you should leave the Bootstrap files alone as much as possible. And what most templates do and what Joostrap does is that we allow you methods to be able to override Bootstrap and do it very simply without having to add a lot of extra file size or a lot of extra bloat. And so there's a custom CSS file and a custom JS file. So you've got your JavaScript, you can put in your custom JS, and any style overrides and custom styling, you put in your custom CSS. So you can update your buttons and change them to be whatever you'd like them to be. And you've only got a few lines of code that you put into your custom CSS to do that. And the same with your JavaScript. But wait, there's more. And no, you don't get free steak knives, but we can help you clean up. And the way you do that is after you've been doing your development, you might end up with a whole heap of rubbishy code in your custom CSS. And you want to work out how to clean it up and how to make it nice and minimalistic and get rid of any extra code that you've got there that you don't want. And there's this Firefox add-on that can help you go in and clean out all the selectors and all the classes and so forth that you're not using. And so from the Telegraph in the UK, you can see they've been developing their website for a little while. And so they've got a whole heap of extra bits and pieces left over. And so like on this page, for example, there's over 3,500 unused selectors on this website. But using the Firefox plugin, what was it called again? Dust Me Selectors. That goes through and helps you identify all of the bits and pieces that you're not using after your development. So before you go live, you can go in and clean up all of your code. And there's even more that you can do to make your website work better and faster. And we do this through CDNs. And the content delivery networks allows us to distribute the load over a lot of those delivery points, save bandwidth on our website, makes it load faster because those standard Bootstrap files, which you haven't changed, are being delivered the same on every single website. And also allows us to reduce the hosting costs. And so what it is basically the same thing where you can see that YouTube, when we put up our videos on YouTube, we know that YouTube's got little servers all over the place that deliver our videos nice and quickly to those local people. And what happens with our content delivery networks, they do that same thing, but with the default code that we're using in Joostrap or in Bootstrap. And so you can see here the default jQuery that's used in Bootstrap is actually delivered from the jQuery website. And in most of your Bootstrap templates, that'll come up and it'll have an option for you to be able to load your jQuery from the CDN. And the same thing with your Bootstrap. There's actually a dedicated Bootstrap CDN that just serves the latest Bootstrap files. And that's delivered to all over the world. And so once it's loaded into someone's website, it's delivered in the cache, so it only gets served up from that first website. So as they go around from one website to the other website to the other website, it's always using the same Bootstrap files that get delivered from the CDN. So it gets delivered very, very quickly for people, which is a really good reason not to use that. And realistically, you're absolutely nuts if you're going to use anything apart from the CDN, and it'll be a huge leap forward for your website if you are using the CDNs and the Bootstrap code. And so I got through it in 25 minutes. So there were some questions as well that we had there. Are you there, Phil, as well?
Here's one question for you, Max, and for Phil. So Joomla ships with Bootstrap 2. How do you approach the versions of Bootstrap now that Bootstrap has version 3 out now?
Do you want to cover that, Phil?
I was on mute.
Phil there? No?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Okay, so with Joostrap, I don't know how the other guys do it on other template clubs, but with Joostrap, we don't load any of the Bootstrap files at all from Joomla core. What we do is we load locally from the template file all of the Bootstrap 3 stuff. Okay, but what we're working with at the moment, and we're using on a few sites and distributing it soon, is allowing people to load Bootstrap 2 as well for things like extensions that are still using Bootstrap 2. So we're going to have an override in the template that effectively sorts that out.
Does that cause any potential complications or perhaps a slower performance if you need to run both versions?
Depends where you're loading it from. I mean, if you're loading it from, obviously, the template, we are always advising people to load Bootstrap from the CDN. Okay, so that hopefully, a visitor to a website that has or is using Bootstrap 3 has been to another Bootstrap 3 website that has already cached on their computer the JavaScript and the CSS from the CDN. Obviously, if some of the extension developers, it would be great if they had a switch to pull from the CDN for the Bootstrap 2 versions. A lot of them don't do that. They either customize the Bootstrap 2 or they're just putting Bootstrap 2 from the Joomla core.
So one question I think you've answered, but I'll put it to you, is does the Joomla core load Bootstrap from a CDN? And if not, how could you do it?
Okay, is that me or
you could? Yeah, you could. I mean, if you're wanting to load Bootstrap 2, and it's not getting loaded on your installation, you can always go in and edit, like the index PHP file that'll come with your template and put those similar. How do I get back to that slide? Hang on a sec. I didn't put the cats in. Phil's the cat person, not me. And where are we? Back here. So you could put this same thing in here, and if you go into the Bootstrap CDN website, you can see all of the files that it does serve, and so you can see this version. Keep clicking on it. The version that's loading in this script, you can see, is the 3.1 version, and the Bootstrap CDN, you could put in a similar call in your index PHP file that would load the version 2 of the Bootstrap files for you. But as Phil said, we've got the triggers in there in the Joostrap templates where we controlling the output so that even though we're using Bootstrap 3, most, the layouts and so forth from Bootstrap 2 are still being respected in the websites or the extensions that are still using Bootstrap 2 as well.
This is another question about CDNs. Do you have any recommendations for which CDN to use? There's a lot of services out there. Have you had any particular luck with one or another?
Well, the default Bootstrap one is the bootstrapcdn.com. But apart from that, personally I use CloudFront because I'm in Australia. We are a bit restricted because we don't have every CDN that's available in other parts of the world that service Australia properly. So the Amazon CloudFront is what I use out of Australia, and that works pretty well. I'm not sure about yourself, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, my advice is always, if you're loading jQuery, jQuery min, or whatever, okay, go to their website. That's what the majority of developers use. The same with Bootstrap. If you just search for Bootstrap CDN, you'll go to the Bootstrap website, and you will be advised, where to get that from. And the majority of people using Bootstrap use that CDN. So that's what I hope when people go onto any of my sites, is that they've already been to a Bootstrap website, and they have that that CSS file or JavaScript file already cached on their PC or Mac.
Another CDN question here. Is it possible to, if you're doing development and you're testing the CDN, if you have some files stored on the CDN, for example, how do you clear the cache? Is it possible to reset a CDN while you're working with it?
Yeah, the CDN, well, depending on how you implement it in the website, you can either do it from the actual administration area on your website and turn the CDN on and off through the implementation, or CloudFront, for example, you just log into the admin area and say clear it, and it does.
Okay, we have a sort of a slightly more philosophical question here. So Bootstrap is based on a grid, it's based on columns. How does that interact with the Joomla module system? Is it possible do you have a Bootstrap, a Joostrap template available? I think one of the people asking questions is trying to get his head around how the column system interacts with the Joomla module system as well. Is it one module position per column, or does one module perhaps go across several columns?
So what we've got is if you look at it as in rows, so each row across is a 12-column section, and so that 12 columns is basically broken down into 12 little bits and pieces. So if you have a module area at, above your content or anywhere on the website, and you've got a module area, that's defined as being a 12-column area. And if you put a module in there and you give it a class of col MD4, or in the old Bootstrap, it would be span 4. 4 out of 12 is 1/3. So you'll have a span 4 or a col MD4 that'll fit there, and you can put another one that's col MD4, which will go into 8. And then you've got another one that's col MD4, which takes it up to 12. So that'll fill that full row out of 12. You can have 12 modules there that are just one that you give it a class of one column. You could put 12 across there if you wanted to. And then basically what it does is, as you compress the screen down, they wrap around in underneath each other. And in Bootstrap 3, you've got the XS, SM, MD, and LG bits next to your numbers, and that's extra small, small, medium, and large. And so as you've got the screen sizes that go down, if you've got a MD4, that'll go down, that'll keep those modules in three columns, displaying as 1/3 of that row. And then when you get down to MD, which is medium size, they'll then, instead of being on the one row together, they'll then go full width, one underneath the other. So that as you go down onto the smaller screens, they'll display under one another, because obviously they wouldn't display properly if they were 1/3 of that row still. Does that sort of help?
Yeah, and I think
Okay, so
I think
can I just add to that, Stephen?
I'll go for it, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, what we're tending to do with the Joostrap templates is, rather than having different columns with different module names, is we have rows. So let's say, for example, we have a row for top, and a row for bottom, and a row for footer. In that footer, we can use any of the 12 columns, put modules in there. In those modules, we can use the module class suffix to put in col MD4, col MD4, col MD4, or whatever. So we can set up the bottom position with only 3 columns. We can set up the footer with 6 different columns. Col 2, col 2, 6 times. But what we actually do in the middle is we have that's the only one row really which is different. We have a left module position, then we have the component area, okay, which is where we show articles and extensions, etc. And we have a right column. What we do there is the left and right has, if we don't put anything in those positions, we use the if modules statement around that div, and we just literally close up that left or right if we don't put anything in that module position. And we have a little functions file in Joostrap where it just calculates, if we don't have a left but we have a right and we have an article in the middle, it just calculates that middle component position. Okay, because if it were a left and a right and a component, we might have 3, 4, 3 as our columns. But if we take away the module from the left position, we will still have 3 over on the right hand side. So we then know that the article in the middle is going to fill 9 of those columns. Hopefully that makes sense.
So with some of these...
So if there's nothing in the module area, say the left or the right hand side, it just collapses and turns into a full 12. So it still fills out the area automatically based on what's presented on the pages themselves.
So I've hopefully you can see the screen from Joostrap that I put up. That was the question I think that the attendee was talking about. He was wondering technically how it works inside Joomla, and in order with Joostrap to use those different columns, you're using module suffixes to control the width of the different modules, right?
Yeah, so in your module, you've got an advanced tab where there's a bit to put in a custom module suffix. And so in those module suffixes is where you put the Bootstrap classes, like, well, in Bootstrap 2 it's span 6, in Bootstrap 3 it'd be col SM6 or col MD6. And so that defines how wide the module is going to be, given that each module position will be part of a col 12 as well.
So we deal with quite a lot of people who perhaps were web designers maybe a few years ago, and it's interesting to see them try and get their heads around this more modern way of thinking, maybe not thinking so much in terms of pixels, but thinking in terms of columns, in terms of a grid layout.
Yeah, well, what you've got on this screen, you can see that the width of that position below, for example, where it's got module suffix span 12, outside of that area will be the Bootstrap class called container, and container is what stops the page from going full width, so that it goes 100% of the width of the screen. So where you've got your designs, where you've got like a shaded element, for example, and it goes to full width, that'll be a row class. And then where you've got your content and your bits in the middle will be a container, which contains the contents to the middle. And then within that container is where you've got your, where you can sort of use your 12 columns to lay everything out as you want to within the module positions. And the big difference is between Joomla a few years ago, before the responsive frameworks were basically invented or implemented, they'd be trying to have pretty much as many module positions as they could in a template. So you'd end up with a template that looked almost ridiculous in the instructions that they'd give, or a diagram of how many module positions they'd have. They'd have like 50 module positions, and then you had to try and work out where all those module positions were and have like a printed off thing so that you could work out where everything was. Whereas this, because we've been able to reduce the number of module positions, because we can position and make everything the size that we want, we end up with, you know, like in Joostrap, for example, we'll have like a top, a slideshow above, left, right, above content, below, bottom, footer. And that's really about all of the module positions we need, because you can construct almost any layout inside there just by using these classes.
Okay, so another interesting question. So a practical question here. So we have 3 module positions, I would say, here. How would you approach getting module positions underneath each other in a position like this? So say you wanted 6 modules like this, 1, 2, 3. How would you approach getting also 4, 5, and 6 underneath?
Well, you just put span 4, span 4, span 4, span 4, span 4, span 4. Once it gets to 12, it automatically wraps to the next row.
So you'd put all 6 modules into the below position, and Joomla would go on the ordering in the back end?
Yep.
Great.
And as the screen goes down, they just automatically wrap under each other, and it sort of all works like magic.
So I have
very cool. Once you start doing it, it's very cool.
I have a closing question for you, Phil and Max, 2-parter. Where do you see, first part, where do you see Bootstrap itself headed over the next few months and few years? Do you know what's coming for Bootstrap itself?
We have a crystal ball.
But both myself and Max, you know, we keep an eye on the Bootstrap GitHub, and we see what they're doing and the issues they're fixing, and, you know, new features and that sort of thing. You know, I would say right at this moment in time, they're trying to make things leaner and cleaner, because, you know,
as are we.
Yeah, as are we. But, you know, because, you know, the files are big. And, you know, even though, you know, we're trying to push everybody to load from a CDN, you know, some people do want to load their own files, which is fine, and they're cool, and they are fairly large. So, you know, a lot of what they are doing is to try and get, you know, the bloat down, and, you know, also, you know, existing functionality, they're trying to make it better. To be honest with you, you know, with the Twitter guys and a load of the, you know, uber guru freak, you know, developers that are on there, you know, I haven't got a clue where it's going to be in 6 months, not alone 12 months.
Let me sneak in one quick question from the audience then before I ask the final part of my closing question. Question is, how would you go about using offsets?
There's in Bootstrap, if you go to the Get Bootstrap website, they've got a lot about layouts and working with the grids and so forth. And there's classes such as pull left and pull right, which is basically a float left or a float right to pull things around. You have and you do also have offsets that are basically built in there. So if you click on the getting started, and no, is it on the next one? Try CSS. Go up to CSS on that main menu, and the grid system.
Then go to grid system, Steve. Then just scroll down there.
Yeah. And you've got your offsets here. And you've got offsets, not only have you got the offsets, you've also got which screen size. So you've got your XS, SM, MD, LG for your extra small, small, medium. And you can see underneath that nesting columns, you can see also that they've got different commands for what it looks like on an extra small screen as opposed to a small screen. So you can have all sorts of different layouts dependent on your screen sizes, and also offsetting them and also nesting them in each other as well. So provides you a huge amount of stuff in there. And the other thing you can do if for example, you do have two 6-column modules together, you can load one of them first, assign it a pull right so that it goes over onto the right-hand side. So when you look at it on a large screen, it goes over onto the right-hand side, but because it's actually being loaded first, when the screen goes smaller, it then ends up being at the top. So there's all these tricky, I suppose, layouts and ordering bits you can do with these classes so that you don't even have to have, two instances of a module to show one on a small screen and one on a large screen. All you do is you just sort of trick it around. So you say, well, I load first, therefore on the small screen I'll be at the top, but then when I'm on the normal screen I want to be a pull right, so I'm going to go over onto the right hand side on the large screen. And then if you go down here a little bit further, you can see down on the menu where it says responsive utilities. On the menu on the right hand side, sorry. You can also see there where you can set specifically what is visible on a large screen, small screen and so forth, and what's hidden on the different screen sizes as well. So all you do is put that module class in, or even for your inline divs, when you're doing straight coding, you just put those classes into your divs and your elements on your page, and it turns them on and off dependent on screen size, and also you can use obviously the ones for the sizes as well.
Cool. So my final question is, if people, that's going to be my wrap up. My final question is, where is Joostrap headed? What do you guys want to do with the platform you built?
Well, we've been basically going a little bit the same way as what Bootstrap is in sort of consolidating and minimizing code to make it as fast and quick and responsive as possible. And also, when I suppose when the Joostrap templates first came out, there wasn't Bootstrap in Joomla at all at that point in time. So there was a lot of overrides that we had that we built into the templates just to get it to load and to work properly. And now that the Joomla code has sort of caught up a fair bit, we've been able to decouple probably 80%, do you think, Phil? Probably 80% of the overrides that we had for HTML. We've actually been able to decouple them, control them all just out of the Bootstrap core code. And so things like rich metadata and tags and other elements that are being developed in Joomla and and adding extra benefits to people, basically as soon as it's released by Joomla, because we're not using all of those overrides, we're getting all of the benefits there for our members. So they don't even have to upgrade their templates. A lot of the time, they just update Joomla, and all of a sudden they're getting all of those benefits straight away. And apart from getting those benefits, it also means that because we're not trying to control Joomla, we're just implementing Bootstrap into Joomla. It means that when there are upgrades to the Joomla core code, we're actually a lot more stable and a lot less likely to break than you know, the larger framework based templates that have had, you know, quite a few stability upgrade issues when people have gone to upgrade and it just all breaks because they are overriding so much of it. So we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. I suppose the other stuff that we're doing is you know, Joostrap is focusing on support. I think I know. I mean, I'm 50% of Joostrap, so I'm biased in my opinion. But I mean, the support we give, you know, above and beyond, we're you know, helping people build their websites, not just, you know, helping them out with what we provide them in the templates. We've got more extensions that are coming out. We've got more templates that are coming out. With the amount of stability work that we've gone in the last couple of months, just the last 2 to 3 months, the amount of work we've done on stabilizing everything a lot better has been, you know, just almost a complete rewrite of the base code that we've got there at the moment. I don't know, you got anything else to add, Phil?
Yeah, I think my aim is, well, has been, and we're getting there, and it's going to be even better 3-6 months down the road, is really just to try and make things as simple for people as possible. I mean, you know, nobody wants to go into or I don't personally want to go into a template, into the template manager, into the template and see the parameters, and you get a 1,000,001 template parameters. You know, I want to make things nice and simple. You know, like for example, the off-canvas mobile slider that comes in with the navigation. You know, do you want that to slide in from the left, the right, the top, the bottom? Simple as that. You know, do you, you know, with, you know, if you're showing your component area and a right position, module position, you know, do you want that right position to be 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, 5 columns? You know, real simple stuff. But because we, you know, I actually don't call any of Joostrap's templates a framework, because it's actually not. You know, when you look at it, it's an index.php file. You know, and it's easy to find, you know, those module positions if you want to rip them out or change them, rename them, do whatever you want. You know, it's that one index.php file. So, you know, I think, you know, not just for people who aren't developers, but also for developers, it just makes things a lot, you know, damn sight quicker for, you know, customizing or, you know, getting your website up.
Cool. Well, thank you very much indeed.
You don't have to spend half an hour trying to find a file to change. It's there.
I know, Max, it's late for you on a Friday night, and I really appreciate you staying up for us. And
Thank you.
yeah, Phil, thank you very much too. Thanks for to all of you guys who attended as well.
Could I just say one thing, Steve? Go
for it, Max.
Yeah. The Joomla Beat podcast that's run by Pete Bury up in Sydney, he's got episode 66 with an interview with Phil that's up on his website there now. That's the recent release one, episode 66 on Joomla Beat. It's joomlabe.at. And if you listen to the interview, there's a discount code there for 25% for any of our products and memberships on Joostrap that we've got going on at the moment over the next few weeks.
Cool.
So if you are interested, go in and listen to Joomla Beat, listen to the interview with Phil, and yeah, grab the discount code and save 25%.
And you've got a few shout outs and a few thanks in the chat. Big shout out to Joostrap. The support is amazing. You guys have taught me so much. So you've got some happy customers, Jimmy.
Yeah, look, yeah, and you know, in the forum and stuff like that, yeah, we've got great relationship with all the members in there, and love helping everyone out. So yeah, look forward to seeing some of you there.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you at another Joomla 3-day presentation.